Okay, so I don't really do this, but I'm gonna post. Because honestly, I feel like I'm losing it a little, just thinking about all this again. And the way people act like it was all fine is wild to me. So IDK, here's my story, I guess. Anyway, I was 10, and I remember this one summer day. Like, the sky was way too bright. My mom was acting super peppy, which was weird because she's not that type of mom usually. She's more the quiet but snappy kind. My dad was kind of the same, making dumb jokes and nudging me like he was trying too hard. We were driving to Grandma's house and they had the radio up kind of loud, which I remember because my mom kept telling my dad to turn it down and then doing it herself like she had to control everything. I wasn't even supposed to be at Grandma's that day. It was just random. I remember I had my backpack, but nothing else really. Just like my tablet and my charger and a hoodie. I didn't have any of my stuff, like not even my toothbrush. We pull up to Grandma's and my dad's like, "Go ahead, we'll be right in." But they come in after me and Grandma is already at the door. You could tell she wasn't expecting them, or she was, but it was still weird for her. Anyway, they barely say hi. They just say they'll be back after running some errands. And my mom keeps giving Grandma these looks, and Grandma just shrugs at her, and nobody's really saying anything real. I just went along with it because I was 10 and I figured, whatever, adults are weird, they'll come back. I sat on the couch and watched Grandma do her crossword. She kept asking if I wanted a snack. I kept checking the driveway, thinking I'd see their car, but nothing. The first couple hours I just played games on my tablet and tried not to think about it. But when it got dark and they weren't back, I started asking Grandma, like, when are they coming back? She would just say, soon, any day now, really quiet, and she'd pat my hand. I remember that first night, I slept in Grandma's guest room, which was really just a storage room with an old twin bed. I kept waking up thinking I heard their car. So the first week, I kept thinking they'd show up. I kept bugging Grandma and she'd just sigh and say, "They'll be back, you'll see." But she didn't look at me when she said it. I started school 2 weeks later, and I had to use Grandma's address for everything. And she bought me a lunchbox that had puppies on it, which was honestly embarrassing. But I didn't say anything. At school, the teachers kept asking about my parents, like, when are they picking you up? And I just said they were busy, which was true, I guess. But in that way where nothing was true. Kids at school didn't really get it. One girl, Sydney, kept asking me who I lived with now, and I just said, my grandma, for now. And she acted like that was normal. I tried to text my mom from Grandma's old phone, but I didn't get any replies. My dad's number just rang and rang. A couple times, Grandma would get letters from my parents, like actual letters, which was so weird even then. My mom's handwriting, my dad's dumb jokes in the margins. They always said they were sorting things out and that they'd be back soon, but nothing ever happened. Sometimes I'd hear Grandma on the phone late at night talking low, and I knew it was my mom. I could hear her voice, but I couldn't make out the words. Once I heard her say, "She's asking about you," and then she just said, "I know, but she's your kid." After that, Grandma would act all tired and get real strict about bedtime. The thing is, people think when you get abandoned, it's this, like, big dramatic moment, but really it's just boring most of the time. You just wait, and nothing happens. Nobody tells you anything, and you just make up stories in your head. I kept telling myself they were coming back, that this was just a weird blip, but I knew even then that something was off. Grandma did her best, I guess. She was old, and she had her own stuff going on. She tried to make my favorite food, but she always made it wrong. She wasn't mean, but she didn't really know what to do with a kid. Sometimes she'd snap at me if I forgot my chores or if I left my shoes out. She'd get mad, then later she'd give me candy, like she felt bad. She had her own friends, ladies she'd see for bingo or something, and sometimes they'd come over and they'd all gossip and laugh, and I'd just sit in my room playing games or scrolling on my tablet, feeling like a ghost. I remember one time, maybe a year later, I tried to bring it up with Grandma like, when are they coming? And she just looked at me and said, "You know I don't have the answer to that." I didn't ask again after that for a while. The only time I saw my parents' names was when they sent birthday cards, which was honestly the most awkward thing because they'd always say something like, "Hope to see you soon, love Mom and Dad," and put a 20 in there. After a while, I just stopped opening them and left them in my desk. Sometimes my Aunt Denise would call and ask if I wanted to stay over at her house, but she always sounded like she was just doing it so Grandma would owe her a favor. I did stay once, but her kids were way younger than me, and honestly, it was boring. Nobody ever really asked me if I was okay, just if I was being good for Grandma. At school, I started getting in trouble for dumb stuff, like talking back or not doing assignments. I remember in 5th grade, my teacher told me I was acting out, and I just shrugged. I didn't tell anyone what happened, because what would I even say? I started lying a lot. I told people my parents had to travel for work, or that they were in another city for a while. Nobody really believed me, but nobody cared enough to say anything either. I got good at dodging questions or just laughing it off. I started hanging out with kids who didn't ask too many questions. We'd skate in the parking lot behind the library, or just sit around talking about dumb stuff. I told them I lived with my grandma because my parents were having issues, which was technically true, I guess. Sometimes, though, someone would push too far and I'd get mad and shove them. Once I shoved Lance into a bush because he kept making jokes about my mystery parents. He didn't talk to me for a week after that. Nobody snitched, but I got called into the office anyway, and the counselor asked if everything was okay at home. I just said I was tired. They didn't push it. So yeah, that's kind of how it went for years. Grandma and me, her house full of weird old furniture and doilies, me doing my homework at the kitchen table, her making soup that always tasted like onions. The only real fights we had were about chores, or if I forgot to call her when I was late. Sometimes I'd get mad and say I wanted to go home, but she'd just say, "This is your home now." I hated that. I started spending more time online, just scrolling mindlessly, watching stupid videos, texting people I barely knew. I guess that's when I started realizing this was just my life now, that nobody was coming to get me. I'd see my friends post family pics, and it would just hit me how weird my life was compared to theirs. I tried to talk to Grandma about maybe calling my parents, but she'd just shake her head and say, "They'll call when they're ready," like it was all up to them. Sometimes I'd get so mad I'd just go for a walk around the block. A couple times I left and didn't come back till after dark. Grandma would be waiting at the door, arms crossed, and she'd just say, "You scared me," and then go back to watching her shows. I knew she cared, but she never said it out loud. There was this one time, when I was about 12, that my mom actually called. Grandma handed me the phone, and my mom was real awkward asking about school, and then saying she missed me. I just said, "Okay," and then she said she'd see me soon, but she never did. After that, I just stopped expecting anything. I started telling people my parents moved away and couldn't take me with them. People believed that more than the work thing, I guess. So yeah, that's how it started. People always act like there's some big moment where you realize you've been abandoned, but it's really just a bunch of little things, like not having anyone show up for parent-teacher night, or never getting picked up after practice. You just stop asking after a while. The last time I asked Grandma when they were coming back, she just looked at me and said, "Any day now." But she didn't even try to sound convincing. I think that was the day I knew she was lying and that nobody was coming. So, Idic, that's part 1, I guess. If anyone's actually interested, there's a lot more. First update, NGL. I didn't think I'd actually post part 2, but whatever. Here goes. IDK, if it's even gonna make sense to people who grew up normal, but it's what happened. I'm probably gonna ramble. Sorry in advance. So, 2021. Grandma's health had been going downhill since before the pandemic, but it got worse that year. Fast. She'd been in and out of the hospital, one thing after another, and every time I asked if my parents knew, she'd say not to bother them. I was 19 by then, doing most of the stuff around the house, figuring out bills and groceries, but people just assumed I was fine because I was mature. Lol. Some of my friends started ghosting because I never had time to go out, or maybe I just stopped trying. The house would get so quiet at night, just the TV on and Grandma sleeping in her chair. Sometimes she'd wake up confused and call me by my mom's name. I guess that's not super relevant, but it's weird, like, you're the only person left and you're still not really seen. When Grandma actually died, it was just me and her in the house. I had to call my Aunt Denise, and she was the one who told everyone else. The day of the funeral was so strange, like, the weather was too nice for a funeral, sunny and windy, and I kept thinking how Grandma would yell at me for not wearing a jacket. I was angry about the whole thing, but also numb in this way that doesn't make sense. I just wanted to get it over with. Here's where it gets wild. My parents actually showed up. I hadn't seen them in years. They never called, never visited, just sent birthday cards and sometimes a text that was so generic it could have been for anyone. I was standing by the front of the little chapel thing, just waiting for people to start coming in, and I look up and my mom's there. She looks almost the same, just older, more tired. My dad's behind her, carrying a bunch of flowers like he doesn't know what else to do with his hands. They both try to act casual, like this is just a normal family thing. My mom goes in for a hug, like arms out, and I step back. She stops, and there's this weird silence. My dad just kind of shrugs, like, "What do you want us to do?" My Aunt Denise is glaring at them but doesn't say anything. Other relatives are whispering, probably about how awkward it all is. My cousin Veda keeps asking me if I'm okay, but it's just that fake concern, you know? Like she wants to know the drama. I just say I'm fine and go check on the food table. The whole service is a blur. People get up and say things about Grandma, how strong she was, how much she loved her family. I'm just thinking about how she never really got to rest, not with all the stuff my parents dumped on her. My parents sit in the back, not talking to anyone. After the service, people are mingling, eating cookies, doing that thing where nobody knows what to say. My mom tries again, coming up to me and putting her hand on my shoulder. I just look at her and say, "Why did you abandon me?" She doesn't answer, just looks down at her shoes. My dad says something about how they had their reasons, but won't look at me either. I guess this is where it got messy. My Aunt Denise starts in, like, "You have no right to show up like this after all these years." And my mom tries to say she was always thinking about me, but Denise just laughs, like, "Sure you were." One of the older relatives, I think her name's Rita, steps in and says this isn't the time. My mom looks like she might cry, but honestly, I'm just annoyed. It all gets louder. My dad tries to say they never meant for things to turn out like this. But then Denise is yelling that Grandma deserved better. And my mom says something about how hard it was for them. Like they're the victims. I just walk away. I go outside and stand by the little parking lot, scrolling on my phone, not even seeing the screen. Someone slams the door inside, probably Denise. I hear my cousin Veda calling my name, but I ignore her. She follows me out and asks if I want to come back in, but I say I need air. A few people come out and try to talk, but mostly it's just that awkward silence. My parents eventually come out too, standing by their car like they don't know if they should leave or not. My mom keeps glancing at me like she's waiting for me to do something. Finally, she comes over, tries one more time to hug me. I step back again, and she looks hurt, but I don't care. My dad says, "We should talk. You're old enough now." I just say, "Talk about what?" He doesn't answer, just looks at my mom. She says they did what they thought was best, that they weren't ready, that I was better off with Grandma. I ask, "How is leaving your kid better for anyone?" She doesn't answer, just wipes her eyes and walks away. People start leaving, saying their goodbyes, giving me those awkward hugs where you can tell they don't actually want to get involved. Denise pulls me aside and says I don't have to talk to them if I don't want to, that I'm allowed to be mad. She says she always thought what they did was wrong, but that nobody wanted to make it a big family drama. I just nod. I don't want to talk about it anymore. After most people are gone, my parents are still standing by their car. My mom finally gets in and slams the door. My dad stands there for a second, then gets in too. They drive off. Later, when I'm back inside cleaning up, Veda is scrolling through her phone, showing me pictures people posted from the funeral. She acts like it's all just another event, like she doesn't get why I'm upset. I tell her to stop, and she just shrugs, says she's just trying to help. I find a text on my phone from my mom. "Hey, sweetie, been thinking about you?" I don't reply. For the next few days, people keep messaging, calling, asking if I'm okay, but it's all surface level. Nobody asks what I actually want. Denise offers to let me stay with her, but I say I'm fine at Grandma's house. She says I'm stubborn, just like my mom. The house is so empty now, just me and Grandma's old stuff. I keep expecting her to yell at me for leaving the lights on. My parents don't call or text again, not for weeks. The weirdest part is how other people act like it's just a weird family thing, like, "Oh, families are complicated, you'll work it out." But nobody actually wants to hear what happened. They just want it to go away, so they don't have to pick sides. I start going through Grandma's stuff, finding old pictures, letters, random junk she kept in every drawer. Found some cards from my parents to her, saying thanks for helping out. Nothing about me. One day I go to the store and run into an old neighbor, Roland, and he asks if my parents are back in town now. I just say, "No, they were just here for the funeral." He gives me that look, like he wants to ask more but doesn't. I keep getting these little reminders that I'm basically on my own now. The bills come in, the fridge empties, stuff breaks. I fix what I can, YouTube the rest. Sometimes Denise comes by to check on me, but mostly she just drops off food and goes. I start to get angry at everything, not just my parents, but everyone who acted like this was okay. Start snapping at Veda, ignoring calls, skipping group chats. My parents don't come back, but a few weeks later, I get another text from my mom. "Can we please talk?" Just once. I delete it. So yeah, that's how the funeral went. Everyone pretending, but nothing actually changing. If you're still reading, I guess you'll want to know what happened when they tried to talk to me again. That's a whole other mess. I'll post about it if people care, but honestly, I'm just tired. Second update. So yeah, still me, Eliza. And if you read the first two, you probably know by now I don't do neat endings or whatever. So don't expect some big catharsis here. This is just what happened, messy as it is. So this is 2022, like a year after Grandma's funeral. House still smells like her sometimes, like powder and old paper and soup that's been cooked too long. I was still living there because IDK where else I'd go, and NGL, the whole adulting thing was not as fun or freeing as TikTok makes it look. I was just barely keeping up Sola's bills, still fighting with Denise on and off. She acts like she's my mom now, but not in a good way. More like, "Are you eating enough? Did you pay the water bill? Why are you up so late?" And then she'll just leave me on red for days. So anyway, after months of nothing but a couple "hope you're well" texts from my mom, I never replied because what would I even say? Out of nowhere, she starts messaging again, like every week and then every couple days. "Hey sweetie, hope you're okay. Thinking of you. Can we talk?" And then my dad starts too, but he's less sweetie and more like, "We should talk. You can't avoid us forever." IDK. Why, but it made me angrier than just being ignored. Like, now they suddenly care? Because Grandma's gone and there's nobody else left to do the emotional work? So I ignore them for a while, but eventually Denise starts pushing me to answer. She says, "Just meet up with them, get it over with. Maybe they'll leave you alone." Veda, my cousin for people who forgot, says she'd want to know why, if it was her. I don't even know what I want, but I'm tired of everyone acting like I'm the villain for not wanting to hear them out. So finally, I text my mom back. Super short, just, "What do you want?" She replies like, "So relieved. says they just want to talk, have dinner, maybe clear the air. I say fine. Public place. 1 hour. That's it. She tries to get me to come to their house. I guess they moved back, or maybe they just never left. Honestly, no idea. But I say no, public or nothing. So we meet at this really dull chain restaurant, the kind where laminated menus and sticky tables. I get there early because I know if I'm late, I'll have to walk in while they're already watching me. I sit by the window, scrolling through my phone, just doom scrolling Twitter, and then I see their car pull up. My mom gets out first. She's dressed up, like it's some big event. My dad's behind her, wearing a shirt I swear he's had since I was a kid. They walk in together, but not close. No holding hands or anything. They see me and wave, like we're just catching up after a vacation or something. My mom tries to smile and sits next to me, my dad across. She starts with, "You look so grown up." I just nod because what am I supposed to say to that? Waitress comes over. I order coffee. My dad just gets water. My mom tries to get me to order food, but I say I ate already. She looks offended for half a second, then smiles again. So there's this painfully awkward small talk. How's the house? How's school? Are you working? How's Denise? I just give short answers. Finally, I say, "Why are we here?" My dad sighs, says they want to be a family again. I laugh, which was maybe mean, but I couldn't help it. I say, "You're about a decade too late for that." My mom puts her hand on mine, says they made mistakes, but they always loved me. I ask, "Then why did you leave me with grandma and never come back?" She says, "They thought it was best for me. They weren't ready. Things were really hard back then." She keeps talking about stress, how they fought all the time, how I was difficult. She actually said that, I almost choked. And they thought I'd be better off somewhere safe, I say. "So you just dumped me because I was inconvenient?" She says, "It wasn't like that," but she can't really explain what it was like. My dad gets mad at this point, says I don't understand what it was like for them, that they were working all the time, fighting, barely scraping by. He says grandma was better equipped to handle a kid. I say, "Yeah, she basically raised me alone, and you just stopped being parents." He says, "You never saw how hard it was for us." I tell him, "You never saw how hard it was for me." He gets quiet, then says I should be grateful I had a roof over my head. I say, "I would have been grateful for parents who didn't disappear." More awkward silence. My mom tries to change the subject, says, "Well, we're here now. We want to make it right." I ask, "Why now?" She says because grandma's gone and they realized how much time they lost. I say, "So it's not about me, it's about your guilt." My dad says, "Don't talk to your mother like that." I say, "Or what? You'll leave again?" He slams his hand on the table. People are staring. Waitress comes over, asks if everything's okay. My mom says, "We're fine, just family stuff." My dad looks like he wants to yell, but he doesn't. I say, "I'm not interested in playing happy families for your benefit." My mom says, "You don't mean that. You're just angry." I say, "I mean every word." She tries to touch my arm. I pull away. She looks hurt, but I'm done feeling bad about their feeling. My dad says, "You're being cruel." I say, "I'm being honest, finally." He stands up, says, "You'll regret this." I say maybe, but not as much as you should. He walks out. My mom just sits there looking at me like I'm a stranger. She says, "Please, can't we start over?" I say, "You didn't want me when I was a kid. Why do you want me now?" She says, "People change." I say, "Not enough." I get up to leave. She grabs my sleeve. I shake her off. She says, "Don't go." I just walk out. As I'm leaving, I hear her crying. I feel nothing, just tired. For the next week, my mom sends these long texts about how she's sorry, how she wishes things were different, how she just wants to talk. My dad sends one that just says, "You broke your mother's heart." I block their numbers. Then they start messaging me on Instagram like, "Can we please talk just once?" I don't answer. Veda comes over, says I'm being too harsh. I say maybe, but it's my choice. She says, "They're still your parents." I say, "And I'm still their daughter." But that didn't matter to them for years. I start seeing people from high school again, but it's weird. They all ask about my parents, because everyone heard something at the funeral. I just say, "We're not close." Some people look at me like I'm doing something wrong, like I should be the one to fix it. I start noticing little things, like how people act around me now. Denise treats me more like an adult, but she still nags. Veda stops coming by as much. I'm alone a lot, but it's not the worst thing. I get used to the quiet, to just handling things myself. I hear from my parents again, this time an actual letter in the mail. My mom's handwriting, says she's sorry, says she loves me, hopes I'll call. I don't reply. I think about it, but I don't. I start doing more things for myself, fixing the leaky sink, learning how to budget, taking care of the house. Sometimes I get mad and slam the kitchen drawers just like Grandma used to. Sometimes I yell at Denise over text, then apologize later. Sometimes I just sit on the porch and scroll TikTok for hours, not really seeing anything. So yeah, that's the second chance talk. Not exactly a happy update, but it is what it is. IDK, what's next? But I guess that's part 3. If you want to know what happens after, Let me know. I'm not sure it gets any better, but whatever. It's real. Last update. All right, so this is probs the last time I'll post about this whole mess. TBH, I wasn't even sure if I should, but a couple people DM'd and said it helped them, so whatever. Here goes. If you're new, I'm Eliza, the one whose parents left her WH grandma at 10 and just dipped. If you read the last parts, you know how my parents suddenly popped up again after grandma died and tried to act like we're all good. It's been a year since that whole dinner thing where they wanted a fresh start. If I'm being real, nothing about it is fresh or a start. But here's what went down since then. So 2023 starts off weird. Like, I figured after I blocked my parents and ignored their messages, they'd just eventually give up and disappear again. That's what they're good at, right? Nope. Instead, they switched to every possible way to reach me. DMs on Instagram. Even a Facebook friend request from my dad, which is so wild because he hates social media and used to rant about kids these days glued to their screens. The messages always say the same thing. Can we please talk just once? Sometimes it's longer, like your mom misses you so much, or we're sorry for everything, but mostly just that short, desperate line. Angle. The first time I actually saw my mom in person again after the funeral was by complete accident. I was in the grocery store, hoodie up, earbuds in, just grabbing stuff for the week. I see her like 2 aisles over, by the canned soup. She spots me and her whole face just lights up in this way, like she's about to cry and win the lottery at the same time, and she starts walking over saying my name. I just turn and walk the other way. She follows me, calling my name louder, and I legit had to duck out the fire exit by the bakery just to get away. Then she texts me, not even 2 minutes later. Just, can we please talk just once? After that, I start seeing them everywhere. Not in a stalkery way, but like, suddenly they're at all the family stuff again. Denise's birthday? They're there. Veda's graduation? They show up and act like everything's fine, like it's all water under the bridge. I literally stopped going to some stuff just to avoid the drama. Veda got mad at me for skipping her grad dinner, said I was being petty, but then she admitted my mom cornered her in the bathroom and started crying about how she just wants her family back. It's like I'm supposed to be the bigger person, but I'm the only one who ever had to actually live with the consequences of their choices. Even Denise. She tries to back me up, says I don't owe them anything, but I can tell she's tired of being in the middle. The worst was Easter. Denise tried to do this big family lunch because she thought maybe enough time had passed and everyone would just be civil. She kept asking if I'd come, said maybe things could be IDK, not good, but at least not a total train wreck. I said I'd come if my parents promised to just leave me alone. Like, don't try to talk to me, just act normal. She said she'd tell them, so I go. I bring a pie because I'm not a monster, and Denise always says I should bring something. It's awkward from the second I walk in. My parents are at the table. My mom is smiling way too big. My dad stands up like he thinks he should hug me. I just walk past them and hand the pie to Denise, who looks like she regrets everything. Veda tries to joke about it, says, "Look at you being all domestic," but nobody laughs. We sort of get through lunch. My dad keeps looking at me, my mom keeps trying to join in my conversations. At one point, she puts her hand on my arm and says, "Can we please just talk? Just us." I pull my arm away and say, "Not today, or any day, actually." My dad says, "You're being selfish." I say, "I learned from the best." Veda snorts, which doesn't help, and my mom slams her fork down. She stands up and says, "I can't keep doing this," and leaves the table. My dad follows her, but not before glaring at me and muttering something about respect. Denise is silent for a second, then just starts clearing the table. Veda mumbles, "Well, that went well," and goes to help. The rest of the afternoon is just people walking around on eggshells. My mom sits in her car for like 20 minutes just staring at her phone. My dad finally gets in, and they leave. Denise tells me I did nothing wrong, but I can tell she wishes it was easier. She says, "They're not bad people. They just made bad choices." I say, "That's not my problem to fix." She says, "I know, but it's still sad." I say, "Yeah, it is." Sometimes I wonder if I'm being too harsh, but then I remember every birthday, every parent night, every day I sat by the window waiting for a car that never pulled up. Nobody ever apologized for that. Not really. My mom just keeps saying she was overwhelmed, that she thought I'd be better off with grandma. My dad says he was trying to hold everything together and couldn't do both. They act like I should be grateful they let grandma raise me, like that was some huge gift. I see people online talking about forgive and forget, or family is everything, and all I can think is, they never had to live in a house full of someone else's broken promises. I started therapy for a bit, not because of them, but because I just felt like I was angry all the time. My therapist says it's okay to not want a relationship, that I get to decide what's healthy for me. Sometimes I still feel guilty, especially when Denise gets that sad look, like she wishes she could fix it for everyone. But I'm not a kid anymore, and I can't pretend I'm the one who needs to reach out. I started fixing up grandma's house, little by little. Painted the kitchen, replaced the old curtains, got rid of all the weird knickknacks that made it look like a museum. It's not much, but it's mine, I guess. Sometimes I find myself saying things the way she used to, yelling at myself for leaving lights on or letting the faucet drip. I wish she was here. She wasn't perfect, but she never pretended to be anything she wasn't. Sometimes Veda comes over and we eat junk food and watch dumb movies and don't talk about family at all. Sometimes Denise drops off groceries and nags about my lawn, but it's fine, I know she means well. My parents are still around, but less now. They still send the same message every couple months. Sometimes my mom leaves a voicemail and I don't even listen. Last month, my dad sent a letter. He wrote that they're getting older, that they want to know me, that nobody's perfect. He said, "You only get one family." I almost replied, but I didn't. I know people expect some neat ending, like, "Oh, I forgave them and now we're close." Or, "I cut them off forever and now I'm thriving." It's not like that. It's just quiet. I wake up, I work, I pay bills, I hang out with people who get it. Sometimes I think about answering, but I haven't yet. Maybe one day I will, maybe not. So that's it. Not really an ending, but it's real. Thanks if you read all this. IDK. If it helps anyone. But at least it's not just in my head anymore. And for everyone who keeps asking, why not just meet up? Why not give them another chance? Why not at least hear them out one more time? Here's the real reason, and maybe it'll make sense. Maybe it won't. It's not just that they left me, or that they missed birthdays, or school stuff, or all the little things everyone else takes for granted. It's that when they came back, they still made it about them. Like, every single time it's them asking for forgiveness so they can feel better about themselves. Not once have they actually asked what I went through or even just said, "I'm sorry, I hurt you. Tell me what you need." They talk about being overwhelmed, about stress, about how hard it was for them, but nobody forced them to leave. And they never once tried to come back for real until Grandma died and I was the only person left. I don't want people in my life who only want me when it's convenient, or when they're lonely, or because it makes them feel less guilty. I want people who actually see me, who care about what I want, who don't try to flip everything around so I'm the one who has to fix things. They had years to reach out, to show up, to make it right, and they didn't. And now they just want me to let it go because it's easier for them. I'm not interested in being someone's second choice, or their redemption arc, or their emotional cleanup crew. If they ever actually cared about how their choices affected me, if they ever listened without making it about their own pain, maybe things could be different, but they haven't. And honestly, I don't think they ever will. So yeah, that's why. Not out of spite, not because I want revenge, just because I finally get to choose who has access to me. And right now, they don't deserve it. Maybe that'll change someday, IDK. But for now, I'm good with my decision.